Let's go ahead and look at the top 4 times for Miami Nights. As of right now, that's Robogenesis, PewPew, DolmaFPV, and FPR Dan 1. We're going to go ahead and look at these all side by side and see if we can notice any sort of differences between the flying styles of these different pilots. So we're off to a good start here. Everyone kind of cuts on the inside of the corners. You can notice some people were cutting a little closer on certain sections here. Everyone's kind of taken that relatively similar. We have a couple differences around the football post. That hallway seems very similar. Here's where there's quite a few differences on how people are taking that. We got some differences on the inner corners there. There were some differences back around the other side of that football post. Looks like Robogenesis took that on the left and everybody else took that on the right, but that all went by pretty quick, so let's break it down and look at each individual obstacle one at a time. So we've got everybody here on the starting line and they're all synced up to exactly one frame after each vehicle started moving. And then we're going to go and have them fly all the way until the very first yellow pole is out of view. Now, this is not necessarily going to be an exact science because, you know, different camera angles and all that kind of stuff. But I think this will give us at least a good idea on what we get. And we're going to go ahead and go full speed at first here, and then we'll watch it again in quarter speed. So here's our quarter speed view. Everybody's nice on the inside there. We've got some people taking the inner side a little faster, and you can already see Robogenesis has pulled ahead a little bit here, with the last one being Dolma, which is interesting because Dolma definitely catches up later in the game. Let's go ahead and watch this at quarter speed one more time, and I want you to really pay attention on the second turn. The first turn here, Robo takes a little tighter than everyone else, but the second turn really separates everything. Notice he hits that top corner and really comes around right away, whereas Dolma, who was the last in this particular obstacle, kind of let it ride out a little further into the field before coming all the way back around, and Robo just wrapped right around that top section. You need to remember that this is a 3D game and you're trying to hit your apex in 3D as well, not just the turns, and that really made a big difference there for Robogenesis. So we've got everyone synced up here to the frame immediately after they pass the yellow goal. You'll notice that the timestamps on each of the videos is slightly off. And that's as if they all hit this spot at the exact same time, eliminating the prior obstacle. So let's go ahead and take a look at these, and these are going to go right around the big pole behind the billboard sign to just over the balcony as soon as you can't see the balcony anymore. And again, we're going to look at this in full speed, and then we'll look at it again in quarter speed. So Dolma actually takes us the fastest of everyone, and you can tell he's just really on the inside, almost touching that post behind the billboard. That was a pretty simple section there. I don't think we really need another replay. This section is going to be from the very edge of the balcony over to the hoop there down on the field. And this one's relatively straightforward. It's kind of a straight shot, so as you might expect, everyone is within a frame or two of each other, even slow-mo here. Which brings us to our next section. This is going to be from the loop on the field up to just exiting that top gate that is hanging from the ceiling. So we'll take a look here in full speed, and you'll notice that Robogenesis and Dolma take it a little bit faster. Let's watch this in slow-mo. And it looks like Dolma's approaching pretty wide. Robo comes in a little closer, but the big trick, if you look here at the end, Robo and Dolma are really cutting on the inside of that corner, while PewPew and FPR Dan, our pilots on the right side of the screen, take it a little bit wider. They don't really hug the inside of that gate quite as well. Our next section here is them coming down through the gravity gate around the goal post and then just ending right past the last time you can see the gravity gate. And the real rock star here is our pilot in the bottom right, FPR Dan 1. So take a look at this in slow-mo. You'll notice a couple of things. He gets through the gravity gate a little quicker than everyone else, and here's the real big one, is coming around this goal post. He gets just barely below, just close enough to get the checkpoint to register, but not so high that he's having to go all the way around that goal post. Our next obstacle here is just this corner. It's pretty simple, but it really highlights how important it is to cut your turns. You'll notice that Robogenesis and Dolma cut really close. PewPew and FPR Dan do not. And as a result, they save about 0.6 of a second on just this one turn alone. It's pretty impressive how much time you can shave. This next one here is going all the way down the hallway and to the purple gate at the bottom of going up the corkscrew. And while it's a relatively long one because you're going down all this whole hallway, and there's even a couple of turns here, it's relatively anticlimactic. Everyone takes it about exactly the same, and as a result their times are about exactly the same. So there's not too much to learn from here, but we can take a look at the slow-mo anyways. You'll notice everybody really is cutting on the inside of all of these corners nice and tight. They might actually have a little bit of room to cut even tighter, but everyone did a pretty good job through that section. This next section here is one of the more exciting ones. They're coming up through the spiral corkscrew, having to flatten the vehicle back out, and then taking the gate in the back here, and it ends right after you can't see the balcony anymore. Let's take a look at this again in slow-mo. And a couple of these, so Robo takes it upside down, almost as a power loop, and comes back out. PewPew does as well, but not quite as harsh, whereas Dolma and FPR Dan are more taking it almost like a motocross whip. They're coming up sideways. It seems like Robo's is the fastest, not by a heck of a lot, and it also seems like you would need to have your rates up pretty high to pull that off. And then really the kicker here is the way that they take this back loop. Again, this is, a 3D race, and you got to hit the apexes on both the 2D and the 3D turns here. But I mean, you're coming in basically blind off axis to this very small gate, trying to completely reverse the direction of thrust. So there might be a couple tenths of a second left on that turn for these pilots, but good luck finding it. That might be the most difficult turn on the entire course. Our next section is coming around this corkscrew and then getting to enter the hallway. Robo's the fastest on this one. You'll see he cuts really close to the inside, and Dolma is the slowest on this one, and he's definitely staying outside, but it helps him line up for the hallway a little straighter. So you got to kind of pick your battles here. This next section is coming through the hallway around the goalpost until just after you can't see the goalpost anymore. What's really interesting about this one is Robo seems to be the last one to cross by the goalpost, but he does it so close to the goalpost, and I think he's last to cross because he's already arresting his speed and he's just barely coming across it, that he ends up being the first one to get actually fully past it the other direction. Let's watch that a couple of times here. Yeah, and you'll notice everyone else comes way past that goalpost, and Robo's already on his way down into the hallway. FPR Dan is actually technically the last one out of the hallway up top, only by about a frame, but he is very clearly second place getting past this goalpost, and I think that's as a result of him not overshooting like the others did. Our last section here is the final hallway to the ending. And PewPew's the first one around that first corner, but you'll notice that Dolma actually takes it a bit tighter here, and as a result is in the clear lead all the way down this hallway. While FPR Dan was actually the last one around the first turn, ends up making up a lot of time on the second turn, where it looks like Dolma went a bit wide, and that cost him a little bit of time, but he was still able to get this section done the fastest. Now, if we really wanted to do this turn by turn or frame by frame, I'm sure we could do even a little bit better. But let's go ahead and just, with the sections that we've got, see if we can figure out what the theoretical fastest lap would end up looking like. So here it is at full speed. Most of this is Robogenesis. but it does switch to a couple other pilots for different sections. And I fixed the time in the upper right hand corner as well. That's why the background kind of flashes behind it. So that is what the time would be if this was all the same pilot. And your final time ends up being 35:23 in comparison to Robogenesis's 35:78 as the current top leader. That's a difference of 55 tenths of a second, so right around 1/2 second difference. Let's take a look at this again in slow motion, and then I'm going to go try and emulate it and get real frustrated with the game because I'm not quite as good as these pilots. Anyways, hopefully this analysis helped you out. Some of you guys trying to shave, the last couple of tenths of a second off of your time might be able to use some of these lines to figure out where you're going wrong, where you could save some extra time. And I'll see you on the leaderboards. Enjoy.